So Rob, you want to hear our story? The story about Caracas?
What's the story then?
It's the story about the global city and the global slum.
It's about the North and the South.
It's about wealth and poverty.
It's about anticipating and retrofitting.
It's about equal chances for citizens.
It's about friction zones.
It's about going into the city and taking action.
It's about social responsibility.
It's about building the informal city.
Aquella que no se finge y no se puede fingir. Gente de barrio, gente dispuesta a combatir a su sueño, conseguir una mejor vida, vivir y no aceptarán morir. Su recuerdo está en el barrio, permanecerá en el barrio. Gente de barrio, el corazón de un mundo que late. Gente que lucha, no quiere que su esperanza la mate. Personas que combaten en la calle a diario. Gente que si quiere vivir. Gente de barrio, el corazón de un mundo que late. Gente que lucha, no quiere que su esperanza la mate. Personas que combaten en la calle a diario. Gente que si quiere vivir. Gente de barrio.
My name is Alfredo Brillenborg, and I'm an architect.
I'm Hubert Klumpner. I'm also an architect, and together we run the urban think tank in Caracas. Tell a story to it.
So this is more or less the plan of Caracas, of the valley of Caracas, with, let's say, it's 5 fingers. The informal city is about 60% of the city. And those are lodged principally in 2 sectors, at each end, Petare and Katia, or 23 de Enero. However, on each finger, on each hill, you have immense informal settlements. And a few very small ones in the riverbeds, adjacent to the riverbeds, coming down to the city. In fact, building over those original riverbeds. Caracas is a city of valleys, bridges, and tunnels, holding 6 million inhabitants in greater regional metropolitan Caracas. If you think back to Caracas in the 1950s, it was the booming city of the future. There was only 1 million inhabitants. And of those 1 million inhabitants, only a fraction, a minimal fraction, was squatting the hillsides. However, after '58, the doors were opened up to migration from the neighboring countries of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Paraguay, and Chile, let's say, and that migration moved up into Venezuela and to Caracas, being the capital of all the wealth and the resources. They moved and they squatted the hillsides. Now, to this day, of that 6 million, 4 million are now squatting the hillsides of Caracas. So in any moment, if there was any thought that that could be eradicated, they're here to stay. So we have to take a particular interest in trying to see how we can incorporate those informal cities into an infrastructure that would work and that would be positive to the rest of the city. I was born in New York City when my father, escaping a previous dictatorship and government, took us to New York to be educated in, let's say, the North, with the American dream. Always with the idea in the back of our minds of returning to give that knowledge and wealth back to the city. Unfortunately, since 1986, when I arrived back in Caracas, I've had a continuous roller coaster ride, professional and personal roller coaster ride, enduring 2 coups d'etat, 3 subsequent devaluations of the currency, hyperinflation, double-digit hyperinflation, and at the same time witnessing a total breakdown in the city system. Under that circumstances, I felt I could no longer produce anything of value to the city if it did not have a social and a public component.
I was born in Salzburg, Austria, in a little Baroque town, just in the middle of it, more or less. Going to school there, I went to Camilo Sitte's first handcraft high school. I learned actually to be a bricklayer and a carpenter. My grandparents live in a 400-year-old house in the south of Bavaria. And I was always like interested, let's say, in a more practical approach, and going to the next step, studying in Columbia University, where I met Alfredo. Coming from a small town, going to bigger and bigger areas, urban areas, and choosing then later on to come with Alfredo to Caracas, Venezuela, one of these development world metropolises in the urban south. I believe I was taught lessons, important lessons.
Well, this is perhaps a good example to illustrate how settlements here spring up. In 1999 had been a natural catastrophe in the coast state, and for a couple of years there was a floating population. We will walk through this area here now to see to look at the early stage of such an invasion. Niños están construyendo su casa. ¿Cómo es el proceso de construir una casa desde el principio, desde la tierra?
Principio, bueno, mientras que si hay plan, o sea, si llega a becer, uno tiene que picar, botar tierra y después que viene siendo el plan. Ajá. Si no, si hay el plan, ya uno lo que viene es enterrando los palos y eso, y clavarle el material y ya, y el techo.
¿Y de dónde vienen los materiales? Uno tiene que conseguir
sí, comprarlo,
eso.
Por lo menos, bueno, las láminas de zinc, ya sabes, son de la ferretería.
El techo.
Sí, el techo y estas cosas, bueno, uno las consigue por ahí con la gente.
A veces el reciclado.
Sí, esas cosas, sí.
¿Y con cuántas personas viven ustedes aquí?
Yo ahorita estoy aquí con mis 5 hijos. Yo soy sola, trabajo en un comedor de Chávez. Ajá. Tengo ya 2 años sola aquí, que mi esposo, bueno, nos dejamos. Y vivo yo sola aquí ahorita con mis hijos. Estoy echando para adelante con ellos, gracias a Dios.
En Caracas vivirás. Caracas vivirás y la vida pasarás cantando. Y si lejos tú te vas, con Caracas estarás.
Sí, diga.
Here you can see it. This is the informal city. This is what more than half of the world population is calling their home. We're talking about a global phenomena. Migration is going into cities. Venezuela is the most urbanized country in South America. Almost 90% of the inhabitants live now in cities. And this again makes Caracas relevant. It makes it relevant as an urban laboratory. As we can say today, Caracas is actually everywhere. This phenomena of the fast-growing metropolis in the developing world is also not foreign to cities, let's say, outside the European Union, outside North America, outside the developed part of Eastern Asia. If you look away from those islands, which are geographically not even 1% of the settled areas of the world, you will find that about 90% of all housing stock are built not by engineers. They're not built by architects. They're built by people by themselves. The urban think tank in Caracas believes that we have to bring expertise into these areas if we want to avoid catastrophe.
Acuérdate sonar la sirena por si acaso. Área 23, 2006. Ya. A todo barrio de Caracas y de Latinoamérica. Como destapada hoy. Dale, pues.
Here we are, right in the middle of Cota 905. Over there to the right, you have like a continuous sea of barrios, and here to the left,
You have the secret police just behind this funeral parlor, which happens to be the funeral parlor where most of the gang members are mourned. And it happens to be incredibly dangerous when there is a funeral procession going on. And so in this confluence of highway entering the city, secret police behind, beginning of the Barrio Mountain, all coming together. These are the friction zones of the city. This is Caracas.
this is public space in the barrio in Caracas. And what you see behind us here is the end of a road that goes up here, a pedestrian road, a staircase that goes up here where the gangs have shootouts. And what you see here with wall filler marked white are the holes, the shot holes.
Bueno, aquí lo que pasó fue que hubo una rivalidad de los coños de madre allá arriba con los chamos de aquí abajo, nada más por tú pertenecer a este sector, ya te querían robar, te querían plomear, y si no querías, por ejemplo, entregarles las prendas, te robaban. Primero empezaron robando la guía, zapatos, de eso, en esos tiempos vienen los toros, no he dicho que no habían ni tanto, lente, gorra. Después empezaron los chamos de aquí, empezaron también a caerse a tiro con los tipos allá arriba para defender la zona.
He was one of the
amigos de aquí,
one of his friends, and he just
vinieron los de allá arriba nada más porque se la pasaba aquí en el sector, llegaron y lo mataron. Eso fue un 21 de diciembre. Mira, aquí está. Un 21 de diciembre fue.
¿De qué año?
Hace 3 años.
Yo no estudio, son ellos, los children. No es. Ay, no. Tienes que grabarlo a ellos. A ellos tres. A ellos, que lo graben a ellos. Yo tengo una caja así como. Mira.
This is a sector about 300,000 people. Maybe a little bit more than half of them are kids. That's the only sports area. Caracas has 70 hectares of sports area missing due to the urban laws of that city. So the last 3 years we organized ball games here, and the objective is to give them in an area a little bit further down the mountain, an area that we identified where some houses fell down, slid down the mountain to create a vertical gymnasium.
Vertical gymnasium is basically one steel structure with a huge room on the ground level, which is a convertible court. They can have serves volleyball, basketball, and little soccer. And then on top, a running track, and then on the last floor, another soccer pitch.
Eso fue lo que pasó. Entonces, coño, si nos pueden ayudar ustedes con ese gimnasio vertical, le agradeceríamos todo lo que ustedes puedan hacer por aquí, pues. Ya que como ustedes ven, mira, no tenemos cancha, los vecinos aquí se molestan si sacan un balón, empiezan a jugar. Ya después de las 8 de la noche, ya la gente tiene que irse a dormir, porque no es que encuentran hacer, no encuentran ninguna diversión. Y los muchachos, si no hay un balón, muchos agarraron fue las drogas, los mataron. Aquí había un grupito, eran como de 10, 12, a todos los mataron. No quedó ninguno.
The vertical gymnasium is today a patented building systems that we developed. We have a couple of prototypes built already.
Caracas has become the most dangerous city in the entire American continent. In Caracas, more than 60 people are killed every weekend. Last weekend, 60 people were killed. Today is the 27th of February. So far in the year 2007, more than 300 people have been killed in the city of Caracas. Why I make the link between sports facilities and security? Because the main population that is being affected by crime is this population. This building is a way of bringing the city together, of bringing the barrio connected with the city through sports facilities.
The new prototype of the vertical gym will now incorporate solar energy, wind turbines. It will also collect rainwater, and it will really be a prototype that is signaling the new way to build in the city. It's about prefabrication, it's about speed, it's about infrastructure, and it's about a community.
Close to the wall.